For almost as long as Sonic has been a video game franchise, various cartoon series starring the speedy blue hedgehog have been on TV. The first Sonic cartoon, The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, premiered in 1993, just 2 years after the release of the first Sonic game on the Sega Genesis in 1991. Strangely, a second cartoon series, simply titled Sonic the Hedgehog, was released only 2 weeks after the first show, and was even made by the same production company. The newest series, Sonic Boom, first aired in 2014, and is still being shown today on Cartoon Network. Hi, I'm Adrian with channel Frederator, and today we're talking about the cartoon Sonic of 1993 versus the Sonic on TV today. A lot has changed since Sonic's debut on the small screen, from his look to his place in pop culture. Back then, Sonic was simply a cool hedgehog saving the world from evil robots. Today, a quick YouTube search for The Adventures of Sonic and meme can bring you some weird parts of the internet, but that's beside the point. We're here to check out Then versus Now, Sonic the Hedgehog. Let's get started. Characters. The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog took the familiar video game formula of Sonic and his pal Tails battling the villainous Dr. Robotnik and added some supporting characters who were created exclusively for the show. These most notably include Scratch and Grounder, Dr. Robotnik's robotic henchmen, who are usually given even more screen time than Robotnik himself. These dudes are classic cartoon villains found more often than not caught in one of their own traps backfiring on them. Remind you of a particular cartoon coyote? While the characters in Sonic Boom more closely resemble the cast of characters in a modern Sonic game, the series famously gave everyone a redesign from their earlier video game counterparts, putting some of them, like Amy Rose and Tails, into brand new outfits, and giving others, like Sonic and his frenemy Knuckles, totally new looks. Maybe I don't need to see a super buff echidna, but points for trying. Sonic Boom did introduce one new main character, Styx the Badger, an offbeat, paranoid jungle dweller who fights with a large boomerang. Some brand new side characters also play recurring roles in the show for reasons we'll get into shortly. These include Fastidious Beaver, who in true internet commenter fashion begins most of his sentences with actually, and Dave the Intern, who interns at a burger restaurant, but has big dreams of villainy. Apologies to all our interns, but I think there are people better suited to be supervillains. Sonic. In the video games alone, Sonic's look has changed significantly over the years, so much so in fact that the upcoming Sonic game, Sonic Forces, lets you play both as a modern-day Sonic and a 3D animated version of the retro Sega Genesis Sonic, which was also done in Sonic Generations back in 2011. You think Sonic has a hedgehog identity crisis by now? Pretty much the same thing has happened in the Sonic cartoons, with each iteration of Sonic not just looking different, but behaving differently from one another as well. Since The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog came out not too long after the first 2 Genesis games, the show's creator had little to base Sonic on other than his in-game appearance. At that point, the games didn't have too much plot or characterization. The show's creators filled in his personality with a healthy dose of Bugs Bunny. Starting to see a pattern in their influences? Not only does Sonic remain confident and collected, even after he's been caught in one of Dr. Robotnik's traps, but he really likes to wear costumes. He even dresses up in drag on multiple occasions, which is totally taken out of Bugs Bunny's playbook. The Sonic in Sonic Boom has just as much sense of humor, but with a modern edge you'd expect from a show made 24 years later. Where the 1993 Sonic is goofy and slapstick, the modern-day Sonic is self-aware and a little hubristic. The dude's got an ego, even with that scarf. But throughout these and other Sonic shows, one thing remains consistent. Sonic really cares about his friends. Aw, what a good hedgehog guy. Video game tie-ins. The reason all of the familiar Sonic characters were redesigned for Sonic Boom was due to a marketing initiative that included new video games, a comic series, and a line of toys all featuring Sonic and his pals sporting their new looks. The world of Sonic Boom was essentially a coordinated effort to produce a spin-off franchise that's consistent in each of its manifestations. This is pretty helpful when you consider the franchise's past that led to the newest Sonic game having 2 playable Sonics. The Adventures of Sonic was created during a more chaotic time for the franchise where each version of Sonic, between the video games and the 2 TV shows at the time, took place in its own separate universe. So, while at the time of its release, Adventures introduced what was essentially a new world, it did end up inspiring elements of the original Archie comic book series and characters in 2 spin-off video games. Sonic the Hedgehog Spinball, which included an appearance from Scratch, the chicken robot, in case you forgot, and Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, which takes place in the world of the Adventures series and, puts players in control of not Sonic, but a small anthropomorphic being named Has-Bean. These were truly chaotic times. While Adventures fans were only treated to one familiar character in a bonus level of Sonic Spinball, fans of the game got a real treat, an episode of the show inspired by Spinball, in which Sonic storms Dr. Robotnik's fortress from the game. Humor. Both The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic Boom are comedy shows. does Sonic just work better as a comedy? Probably. The more serious Sonic X, which premiered in 2003, features a human sidekick named Chris and a whole season featuring, instead of Robotnik as the primary villain, a race of evil alien robots called the Metarex, which isn't quite as exciting as it sounds. As mentioned, the humor in the adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog is very similar to the comedy in Looney Tunes. The villains are as oblivious to their own impending doom as the heroes are smart and scheming. As a villain, Dr. Robotnik's not so much a threat as much as he is a victim of his own hubris, his confidence in his villainous plans always blowing up in his face for comedic effect. The show also has its fair share of catchphrases, most notably Robotnik's declaration of "I hate that hedgehog!" It may not be as flashy or creative, but there's always comedy in truth. Sonic Boom starts with the slapstick of its predecessor in Adventures and gives it a much-needed modern-day polish. In fact, the stakes in Sonic Boom are even lower than in Adventures, with Robotnik playing a similar role to the Ice King in early episodes of Adventure Time. He's an evil dude, and he attacks Sonic and his friends, but they have an understanding, and kinda hang out sometimes. Meanwhile, Sonic and his friends are getting into all sorts of interpersonal hijinks, with some now mandatory fourth wall awareness. Two of its writers have even described it as more of a sitcom than anything else, which is obvious to anyone who's seen the episode of Sonic racing to return a library book on time. Not quite the stuff of Adventure. Animation style. One of the most visible changes from Adventures to Sonic Boom is the series' animation styles. The Adventures of Sonic had a low budget, and unfortunately, it showed. While Sonic can be expressive and Eggman has an effectively evil look to him, a lot of the show's environments and non-recurring characters are kind of flat. Many of the show's settings can be described as little more than vague alien landscapes. That's not to say the animation doesn't have a particular charm to it, but it's nothing worth writing home about. I only write home when animation really blows me away. Sonic Boom, on the other hand, is computer animated, essentially looking identical to its video game counterparts. The world of Sonic Boom looks a little more populated, and its characters are closer to living, breathing animal people than absurd cartoon caricatures. Boom also makes ample use of its side characters as a result of the very nature of computer animation. While hand-drawn characters can pretty much just be drawn into a scene, any character appearing in a CG world has to be created through a time-consuming modeling process. So, rather than populate the show's world with anonymous background characters, side characters are given time to shine, to make the best use of the blood, sweat, and tears put into making them. Animation sounds really hard. Setting. The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog takes place on the planet Mobius, which seems to consist of empty, sometimes purple landscapes, Dr. Robotnik's lair, and whatever additional location adds to the plot of a given episode. Part of an episode about music, for example, takes place at a radio station, while an episode about a hedgehog mermaid, seriously, that happened, brings its characters into an underwater kingdom. While Planet Mobius would be the location for later Sonic series, it's essentially a different Mobius in each show. In the slightly later Sonic the Hedgehog, the desert landscapes of Adventures are replaced with a forest populated with futuristic buildings, and Robotnik as a dictator ruling the show's world rather than a bumbling villain trying to take it over. Sonic Underground's Mobius is kind of a combination of the two. There are futuristic looking buildings, but its landscapes are closer to the bleak and empty deserts of Adventures. Not only did Sonic Boom reboot its characters, but the show takes place on an entirely new setting, Bygone Islands. The larger world beyond the island is never explored, giving the show a more cohesive setting. The village where the island's residents live started out without a name, literally being referred to in the show as the Unnamed Village, until an episode specifically about changing the village's name. It's now Hedgehog Village, if you must know. Was this village naming fiasco a writing mistake or self-aware humor? Probably some of both, if you ask me. Marketing and culture. In 1993, Sonic was inarguably cool. Just 1 year before, one study claimed to have found that Sonic was more popular with children than Mickey Mouse. This helped the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog succeed not in spite of its flaws, but due to its charm, a large part of which was thanks to Sonic himself. At the time, he was a beloved character, and though the show may have been lacking in originality, to see a beloved video game character just goofing around was a treat. Sonic was so big in the zeitgeist at the time that the show ran a cross-promotion with KB Toys, which, you'll have to trust me, was totally big at the time. However, just as KB Toys went out of business in 2009, Sonic's popularity has declined since his early days, with his then stellar record of video games now weighted down by some critical failures, like the totally bizarre Sonic 06. Sonic seems poised to make a comeback though, with some healthy hype surrounding Sonic Forces and the 2D throwback Sonic Mania. Unfortunately, these come in the wake of the very poorly received Sonic Boom games. As a franchise, Sonic Boom seems to be something of a failed experiment, with Sega's attentions now shifted to retro Sonic adventures. It's against these odds that the Sonic Boom cartoon works, and is probably the biggest success to come of the spin-off franchise. While the cartoon wasn't able to match high viewership from early on, it remains possibly the most well-received Sonic cartoon, winning Best Animation at the 2017 Chico Independent Film Festival. As a franchise, Sonic Boom may have failed to catch on in a big way, with plenty of video game fans criticizing the character's new looks, and the show airing infrequently, which may be a result of declining ratings. However, the TV show remains a standout from a franchise that Sonic seems just about ready ready to move past. The food. Did you know Sonic loves fast food? It may not be what he's known for, but the dude sure can eat a lot of chili dogs, which were a staple of his adventure's character. According to a song from the episode Sonic's Song, the blue hedgehog is fabled to eat chili dogs by the ton. This may be an exaggeration, but crazier things have happened in cartoon shows. Sonic's love for chili dogs carried over in a big way to Sonic Boom, in which the heroes spend their leisure time at the modestly named Meh Burger. While their menu lists pretty standard diner fare, chili dogs are naturally included among their meal options. There's even a whole episode of the show about chili dogs called Chili Dog Day Afternoon. A lot has changed from the early days of the Sonic cartoons to the more polished Sonic Boom of today, but Sonic's love for good chili dog has remained a constant. In conclusion, Sonic's gone through lots of changes from cartoon to cartoon, some of which are remembered fondly, while others are best forgotten. But it's not a Sonic cartoon if it's not a little weird. I didn't even mention the brief and heartfelt educational segments at the end of each Adventures episode. Seriously, look it up. It's no good. Details like this have pretty much been par for the course over the span of 5 different Sonic cartoons, peaking in bizarreness with 1999's Sonic Underground, which features Jaleel White, known as Steve Urkel, and also the voice of Sonic in the original 2 cartoons. White didn't just reprise his role as Sonic, but he provided the voices of Manic and Sonia, Sonic's brother and sister created just for the show. He's a talented dude, but a female hedgehog really wasn't the best way to showcase his talent. You'll see why if you watch it. It gets strange. Today, Sonic is in an uncertain place. The Sonic Boom games are over, which places the fate of the series up in the air. However, interest in Sonic remains and will always remain, because how could it not? Sonic rules. Once again, I'm Adrian, and that's it for our Sonic edition of Then vs. Now. Let us know what your favorite or least favorite Sonic cartoon moment is in the comments. And remember to click that bell icon to become part of the notification squad. We have videos dropping every week, so make sure to subscribe for more on all of your favorite cartoons. And remember, Frederator loves you.